Leo Mercury retrograde insights, 300,000 layoffs expands the realization of Cancer Jupiter. Understand. This one we want to focus on, we want to know because it's helping us to interpret what we're passing through. As necessary changes are made to bring in a new reality that is more grounded to the authentic expression of the self. This portion, it's about bringing women to authenticity, coming out of the binds, the constraints, the slavery, the attachment of feminism and liberalism. Matriarchal power is being established by the hand of God. Matriarchy is not like feminism. It can never be represented by feminism. It is the divine expression of the female or feminine principle. It is the archetype of the high priestess. It is the nurturer, the motherly will and instinct innate in all of us, the moral compass. Understand? No violations of this will stand. This retrograde of Leo Mercury is asking the people to consider what do we need to negotiate or come to terms with concerning the children, because if you will notice, this retrograde takes place just before children go back to school. And stability of the parents is paramount for that strategy to be accurate and feasible, realistic. With the massive layoffs, the hit to the economy, the hit to the status, the economic status and social status of Black women in particular, those conversations are not going to be conversations that can be walked past, overlooked, ignored, or swept under the rug. Now there has to be negotiations, reconciliation, and healing to move forward, because community is now what manifests welfare, not the state. Social services is through your network of community now, not through the state. We're in different times, and we have no choice but to come together and rely upon each other. I told you many before, polygyny is on the way as an open practice, not just as a secret practice that many people pretend they don't practice. It is coming. Many women will knowingly, openly offer themselves to the same man, as they already have been doing, but this so in the open. Polygyny is surely coming. There is no question about it. There's going to be a demand on men with stable standing. Relationships are going to take a natural, original, and authentic design, as monogamy and romance are the same expression that came from the same source, which is Rome. It is a Roman concept. That Roman concept was coined with the Council of Nicaea and Constantine. And it's about corporation, taxation, control of resources. It has nothing to do with love, nor does romance. Romance confuses love in the same way that monogamy confuses the nature of man.
Well, the impact of job loss is being felt nationwide, especially among black women in the labor force. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in February, more than 10.5 million black women were employed. But by June, that number dropped below 10.3 million. That's a loss of more than 300,000 employees in just months. Some of that job loss can be attributed to cuts in the federal workforce and the dismantling of DEI programs in the public and private sectors. Gender economist Katika Roy joins us now. She recently wrote an article for MSNBC that examined black women leaving the labor force, and she joins us now with more on what she found. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
300,000 black women leaving the workforce in 3 months sounds like an alarming number. How and why did this happen? And why do you say it's not a coincidence?
Well, the job cuts, yeah, it's a good question. So if we take a step back, this is an economic alarm bell. The primary piece that we are seeing is the federal job cuts and the agencies that were actually targeted for those cuts, which such as education and healthcare, which are predominantly employed black women. So, for instance, if you look at women's labor force participation and the percentage of black women in the labor force, they make up about 6% of the labor force, but 12% of federal jobs.
Wow. And we've certainly seen that loss, and we felt that loss locally for sure with the federal reduction. What kind of impact? So we talked a little bit about the economic effect. What kind of impact is the loss of black women in the workforce having locally, nationally? I mean, what does it mean for the future when it comes to things like student loans, home ownership, and building generational wealth?
And that's a great point. So one of the things that we know is for every percentage point of women leaving the labor force, it actually hits GDP at about $164 billion. So in other words, the connection is 1% equals about 146 billion GDP loss. But then we have things such as housing, the spillover effects that you were talking about, housing, healthcare, education, et cetera. And we've seen that even with inflation, right? So black women on average earn 64 cents on the dollar, but the inflation rate as of last week is 3 times that for women's goods and services.
Let me ask you, while all of this news seems very, very bleak, is there an upside? How do we go about reversing this trend?
Well, one of the things that we assume is that policy is gender neutral. It's not. It's gender ignorant. And what I mean by that is when we make these cuts, we're assuming that it's gender neutral. It isn't. It's gender ignorant. And the issue is that it impacts everyone. It doesn't only impact black women, it impacts the entire economy. Just as one example, between 1970 and 2016, women increasing their labor force participation added $2 trillion to the U.S. economy. When we see black women leaving the labor force, we're actually shrinking our economy.
Wow. And as you wrote, that affects every single one of us. So when we talk about that big number again, 300,000 women, black women leaving the workforce in just a couple of months, what sort of trends did you see? Are they out of the workforce? Are they becoming entrepreneurs? Where are these 300,000 women going? What are they doing now?
That's a great question. We don't really know. What we can look at from historical data is that there are 2 things that are probably happening. One is that they are becoming entrepreneurs, so small business owners. That's one piece. Or they're joining the informal economy. So they may not be participating in the formal economy, which is tracked by things like the monthly jobs report, but they're participating in the informal economy.
Let me just ask a last question here. For the many women who are watching right now who are in this space, what would you tell them? What would your advice to them be?
Tell your story. I would say stand up and speak out. We need, the stories that I have heard just from publishing this article 5 days ago are incredible, and we need to hear your voices, and we need you. This is not just an issue of equity or fairness. This is actually an issue of economic opportunity for everyone.
All right. Gender economist Katika.
I have a small detail to share concerning the Leo Mercury retrograde that we have going on right now. We're in the 2nd week of this phase. This retrograde is certainly, among many things, consistent with the expansion of Cancer through Jupiter, expanding that realization and receptivity. The priorities of women in the West, starting with the African American, so-called African American female, or the Hebrew woman, is going to change exponentially. When is this change going to take place? As Mars passes through the three courts. Okay, this is why I told you all 2 months ago that it would be essential for you to understand the three courts of Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. I emphasized it. I told you. I explained it. Okay, I put 2 videos out on it so that I don't have to re-explain every detail of what the three courts is. Mars is finishing up Virgo. Virgo is what prepares us for the three courts. That is why Virgo is hyper analytical. Now, when Mars gets to Libra, it's going to bring a karmic justice in the physical realm. When it goes through Scorpio, it's going to bring karmic justice through the instinctual feedback of the people. When Mars gets into Sagittarius, it's going to bring justice from heaven. In other words, God is going to judge. But this has a lot to do with the aftermath of South Node Libra. Those who didn't get the message, those who didn't pay attention, those who refused to evolve, those who rejected the truth and to grow. Those three courts are going to bring the reconciliation to them. It's going to bring justice to them. I'm not describing punishment. I'm describing balance, order, karma, a course of education through challenges. Understand? So when Mars gets into Libra, that is where it begins. Understand? And then Scorpio, and then Sagittarius. These are the three courts. Her priorities are about to change. The turn-up culture, being the #1 consumer in all of the planet, wasting money, the arrogance that goes behind her education, the arrogance that goes behind her career status, the condescent, the delusion of her value. She's about to be healed. And because she is, all other women who follow her marching orders and her cadence in the spirit of feminism, they too will be subject to the same change.
I think I say this for all Houston natives. Y'all are embarrassing. Jonathan comes down here, opens up a store, and y'all did exactly what he thought y'all was going to do. I told my sister, I said he did that on purpose, letting them know that it was going to be free stuff. He wanted to see y'all act a fool, but he didn't realize it was going to up his bag along the way because it got shut down by the city in less than a couple hours of being open. Ladies, we gotta learn how to conduct ourselves better. It makes no sense to fight and play tug of war outside for some wigs. Wigs? Ladies, for real? Wigs? That was crazy.
Right now, you're looking at footage from the grand opening of the Hair Galleria in North Houston, where absolute chaos erupted this week after Black women lined up in packs overnight to get some free hair and beauty supplies. The
context that I want us to hold our attention to is the kids. Fifth house. Now, how does this go together? There's a silent revolution. There's a silent transformation taking place that's not being televised, but it's going to have direct, dramatic consequence, effect, influence, impact to the society. And that's in reference to the 300,000 African American women who were let go or laid off from corporate careers.
With Black children. 300,000 Black women have left the workforce, according to MSNBC. And it is not a coincidence. We have seen the cuts that the federal government has been making, specifically across the Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services. And we have seen the cuts happen. We've also seen the cuts happen over the last few months, specifically at the federal level and also across the private sector due to DEI. And according to this article, the participation rate has now dropped below Latinas for the first time in over a year. Now, one thing that stuck out to me that I thought was very interesting, which kind of led to the conclusion of this article, is that 51% of households with Black children are led by Black women who are the breadwinners. And the article specifically cites that Black women tend to be the economic foothold of the Black community.
So let me give y'all a little bit of insight, because I seen this report and I also seen a news report that came along with it. And we had a conversation about it on the Millionaire Morning Show, right? And so really what this means is that there are a lot of single mother households. Let me say that again. There are a lot of women that broke up their families or that never had a family in the first place, and they decided that they wanted to partner with the federal government in multiple different ways, one including women that, basically lean on child support, social services, welfare, food stamps, and EBT. That comes along with also when they do get educated or when they do get a job, regardless of what field of study, even if it's not a field of study that is what society needs, they were basically somewhat guaranteed a job or a government contract or to work for a government contractor when it came to the federal government. And so
it's a homecoming initiated by deliverance, Uranus. This deliverance can come with a shock value where I didn't have a plan. I don't know what to do. This is unexpected. It seems like things are falling apart. A catastrophe. It's the last thing I would have chosen to do for myself. What do I make of this? The intention of all of the transits stands consistent with Cancer Jupiter. This is that we are to realize again and reverence the value, the sacred status, the essential nature of the family unit. It's going to force reconciliation. It's going to force the understanding that begets forgiveness. It's going to insist that we go back and heal things that we have ignored, overstepped, overlooked concerning what prevented us from making, keeping, and securing the family status of man, woman, child. The formula must be complete. Man, woman, and child. So healing has to take place for this to be. The Capricorn Folus manifested this 300,000 upward of let goes, layoffs. And many would think, well, I'm not so-called African American. What does that have to do with me? It has everything to do with you. The African American is the influencer of Western or American culture. The males influence the hearts of the youth. The females influence the attitudes of the females and how they express it out into the world, as well as gays. So it has everything to do with it. And based on that are the patterns of our spending habits, our lifestyles, the way that we choose and select mates, so on and so forth. It has everything to do with it. And being that feminism is a regime that many females fall into, subscribe to, participate in, or they secretly lust to practice it, even if they might not find the boldness to assert their will through it, is what they long to express themselves through. And that Black Moon Lilith energy that feels empowering in a sense, even though it may be misguiding. Understand, it is through the Black woman that they find the nerve to do that. Understand? So the direction that she goes as a result of this is going to determine the climate of the collective sisterhood globally, as West is the influence of that temple. So what's being addressed through this Mercury retrograde, it's manifesting in families the question of how are the children affected by what we're doing, by what we have been doing, and what we need to do. And with this surge of unemployment, it's changing things. Because it's not televised, we think that it's not having effect. But believe me, behind the scenes, where nobody can see and nobody can hear, vehicles are going to be repossessed, houses up for foreclosure, leases are broken, debts not able to be paid, credit cards in crisis, daycare no longer affordable.
And so basically, the government has been subsidizing Black women. And this is just a fact. This is not my opinion. This is not anything to do with relationships. This is just more or less the facts. The government has been subsidizing Black women when it comes to their household, which gave them more power to be able to break up their families. And so now, when we realize that diversity, equity, and inclusion was really government subsidies to ensure that Black women had an opportunity to be able to work instead of them going into fields, which obviously we know that you had to incentivize them to go into like STEM fields, because if you didn't, then you wouldn't have those type of programs. If they naturally selected them, then they would be more visible and they would be more viable to what it is that we needed in society. But
I have to get up and move. I have to transfer. I have to do this. I have to do that. Where are we going to stay for the winter? Where are we going to move? The fall season is coming. School season is coming. I'm no longer working here. I'm no longer working there. So what are we going to do with the children? Many people were at odds concerning the children. Mothers and fathers were not talking. They were not on good terms or peaceful agreements. Some participating and some not. Some were alienated and some were not. But the point of the matter is that the crisis of this unemployment is forcing conversations to be had, Mercury. Communications to be initiated, Mercury, based on past terms that now are different. The children still have to go to school. They have to have daycare. The primary parent and who the breadwinner is could be much different now. Who's making income and who's not could be much different now. And this is really going to change things. Mercury is in retrograde at Leo, a review, a reconciliation, a seizing of missed opportunity and past themes concerning how we were expressing parenthood with the children. Where does a load of responsibility for certain things need to go now? This is taking place in America at rates, levels, capacities that could be mind-blowing if we got to see it. What's happening behind the scenes. Leo is where we run into matters of ego. And just like ego, there's certain things that you don't want people to see and you don't want people to know without feeling humiliated, some sense of humiliation or discomfort about your status or whichever else. And this is no different. Mercury retrograde Leo, it's a lot you're not going to hear, know, or see because of the factor of ego. People suffering without saying anything. Too proud to pick up the phone and call first. It's difficult to make resolutions or solutions because pride could be in the way of the opportunity. Among many things, this is happening. And what the infamous astrologist wants to do is, I want to bring our awareness to the places in life that may be very uncomfortable to look at. It may trigger something. So you look back at the infamous, oh, why is he talking about this? Oh, I don't like that topic. It makes me uncomfortable. How do we grow? How do we become sincere? Who else is supposed to look at it, if not us? Nobody's going to bring this up. Nobody's going to talk about it. But it's there. The main things that affect everything, nobody wants to deal with it. Just walk around it. We would find that during this retrograde, many past conflicts and conversations concerning the children is coming up that has to be resolved. And look at the time that it's happening. From now until September, children are going back to school. And there's a lot of questions that have to be answered in how fast American society is changing with the Trump administration, especially with 300,000 layoffs. The dismantling of feminism and liberalism has a direct impact to the scope, the outlook of how we expressed the ideal of family. This is what's being expanded by Jupiter. Are we going to look at it? Are we going to think about it? Are we going to be able to explain what happened during our generation, honestly, sincerely, like journalists? Or are we going to hide our faces and pretend like we don't see what's really there? Oh, it's there. A change of attitude is here for females who subscribe to feminism and liberalism. A change of attitude has arrived. The opportunity of reconciliation has arrived because by the wintertime, savings are exhausted, severance package is already ran through, you're still looking for a job, vehicle repossessed, you're about to be homeless, can't afford babysitters or to provide a stable environment for the children. So this expands the home front of those who are stable. It expands the home front of those who are in position to receive and take in those who need care and shelter. And this forces the communications, the participation. It expands the empathy. It purges the intentions. Because now family status is being evolved or transformed, at least, here in the West.
But instead, now what you see is when the rubber meets the road and we go into a merit-based society and a merit-based capitalistic system, they no longer have any value because there wasn't a lot to do in the first place and their jobs was basically all tied to the federal government, which is a problem in itself because the government should not be bloated in order to make sure that people have jobs. The government should be smaller and incentivizing people to create their own businesses, make sure that they're a part of the private sector, ensure that resources is being distributed fairly as far as to people that actually deserve the positions themselves. And they also have a student loan problem. So all of these things are basically combining to be the apocalypse. And when they say that it's a recession out here, they're not saying it's a recession in general. They're saying it's a recession for a certain demographic or group of people that said that they were the most educated, when in reality they were most in debt, they were the most single mothers, and it's starting to it's starting to impact people. And so you're going to see a generation of people, and it's very much happening right now. You see a lot of women that are getting repossessed. You see a lot of women that are losing their homes. You see a lot of women that's basically going back into the home. And you even see a lot of women that are admitting that they prefer the soft life instead of hustling and bustling and trying to get themselves in a position to where they have to work because they was tired as hell in the first place. So these articles are basically exposing the bad lifestyle and the cultural norms that are not only in the black community. The black community usually is the one that catch the brunt of it because we're the one that exacerbate whatever the results are, but that is happening abroad. That is happening across the board to all communities of people that decide that they want to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now when you go to a merit-based society and you have to be the best person, they're all basically on social media saying that they can't find a job. But I don't necessarily think that this is a bad thing.
The normality of single woman status by the recent turn of events with Donald Trump's signature, in executive order after executive order, the celebration of living the single life is now on its last days. If you are single, you will have a very hard time. If you indulge in the culture of having children out of wedlock, you will have a very hard time. If you cannot get past your ego and reconciling with the other parent, you're going to have a very hard time. The answer to everything right now is the expansion of Cancer through Jupiter. taking the high ground, the righteousness, moral commitment, reviving and restoring the consciousness and the moral compass, having values, becoming trustworthy, reliable, cooperative, practicing community, becoming the welfare and social service of each other. Because let's not forget, things have been modified. Section 8 is on a 2-year limit now. SNAP benefits. Yeah, it's going to human trafficking and the illegal immigrant status under the guise of them changing it or not doing it. But everybody knows they're lying. But it's not going to Americans anymore like it used to. The handout days are over. We are in a new world order. And you can't close your eyes and say, oh, it's not me, so I don't need to pay attention to that. It becomes the societal culture that you must relate to. It becomes a societal standard and circumstance that you still must relate to if you are to be neighborly, if you are to practice civics, if you are to understand your neighbor. Do we really know what's happening right now behind the scenes? Are we paying attention to all of these events?
I actually think that it's a good thing that women are now being sent back into the homes, that they are now more in traditional roles. But I will tell you that this is one of the reasons why I believe that black women at a 92% clip voted for Kamala Harris. Let's hear some more of what she has to say.
This is going to cause a trickle effect, not just across the black community, but across the labor force as a whole. So they are saying that black women are disproportionately the breadwinners, the caregivers, and entrepreneurs. And so if black women are losing out on money, on job opportunities, on grants, on all sorts of things due to being targeted because of DEI and because of ongoing job cuts.
Are black women targeted, or are we bloated in the federal government and we don't need a bunch of people to take up payroll that is subsidized by taxpayers? I hate that type of rhetoric. I hate when people saying people are being targeted. Nobody is saying, yo, we're going to pick black women and we're going to try to figure out where all of their jobs are and try to lay them off. That's not happening. Black women in mass, not all of them, obviously, but they picked certain environments and certain fields that did not translate into long-term success, and they thought that that was going to be their safe space. And not only did they think that that was going to be their safe space, they was teasing people. Who you talking to? We the most educated and all of this stuff, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter at the end of the day. I don't see any black men that are complaining about being laid off at all. Zero. I have seen zero video. I'm sure they out there. I've seen zero, nothing. I've seen no reports about it. I haven't seen any Business Insider, Money Market Watches, Bloomberg reports. I haven't seen anything about it. Nobody was targeting them. They were basically being subsidized by the federal government.
Cuts that are happening both at the private and federal level, that this is going to continue to be a trickle effect across the entire economy. And in the article, it also says for every 1 point drop in women's labor force participation, that cost the U.S. economy an estimated $146 billion. So that means less money being spent in grocery stores, less money being spent on clothes, less money being spent on your hair, less money just being spent all across the board. I've already seen
that was basically being subsidized again by the American taxpayers.
Articles that have come out, and in one of the posts that they made, they said that there is a huge increase in parents saying that they are not financially prepared to send their kids off to school, meaning that they're not prepared to pay for school supplies, new shoes, backpack, clothing, socks, all the things that you buy for kids when the school year starts. There are families who are struggling all across the board. So I want to do another post that specifically talks about people, but not just black people, but all marginalized groups, how we are losing our civil rights because
We losing our civil rights, marginalized. Okay.
the Civil Rights Act has been peeled back over the last few months, and not enough people are talking about it because a lot of people think, oh, well, as long as I got my money, ain't nothing gonna affect me. Okay, when you don't have any federal protections anymore, I don't know what money you talking about. So maybe I'll do another post that specifically talks about the things that we are seeing happening for the first time in over 60 years. Shout out to all the women who are out there looking for employment and making ends meet. And let me know if you're one of the 300,000.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing. I think that we need to go back to traditional values. Also, women need to be more into their children's lives instead of trying to compete with men. It creates a much better dynamic for the future generations of us. I don't think that women was ever competing with men in the first place. And black people are not the only group that is affected. White women are affected. You see a lot of different people that are affected that chose to go down a pathway. And layoffs have always been a thing. That's not something that's like mind-boggling or mind-blowing or anything. Like, I don't know anybody, any man that hasn't been laid off in a lifetime. I'm sure there are some, but let me know what y'all think inside of the.
I know a lot of you don't want to face the fact that our transits after South Node Libra, it's about the dismantling of feminism and liberalism. Many of you out there do not want to face it. You don't want to admit it. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want it to be the case. I'm here to tell you it's a saving grace. For the same reason that inside of yourself, every time I talk about this subject, it's like scratching a chalkboard, setting you on fire inside. You should ask yourself why you have that disturbance inside of your soul. Why have you decided within yourself that when these things are talked about, when awareness is being increased about that spirit of feminism, you're set on fire with anger, disgust, and you're ready to run away? You can't take it. You can't handle it. We're going to face it one way or the other. These layoffs that's taking place, it's not to be overlooked. Black women are the ox of the feminist movement, even though it was the white woman's idea. They are the ox of that movement. They pull the load of that entire regime and movement. They fight harder, louder than anybody in political arenas to keep liberalism alive so that they can keep feminism alive. And every other woman on earth reaps the benefits of that influence, of that hope, of that image, of those marching orders, of that cadence. They lust to be able to be so bold. But the black woman or Hebrew woman, she is the only one who decided to fall headlong into it. All of her being put into feminism entirely. And it costed her everything that matters. And she's caught in an illusion of everything that does not matter. And this is her saving grace to bring her back to grounding with herself, where she can see reality and where true value is at, starting with the compass of divine feminine, the matriarchal principle, Cancer, and the moon, which is what she is supposed to be the guardian of, not in betrayal of. Leo Mercury is addressing the children who are affected by all of these turns of events. Because the stability of Hebrew women, black women, is being shaken by that Pholus in Capricorn. She is the muscle and hot blood of the corporate machine. The well-trained German Shepherd for corporate establishments. She doesn't have a clear value system. She doesn't have a clear identity. It is whatever career opportunity would suggest for her to form her image upon, to pattern her plans and her ambitions according to. It is all about career and status. This comes to an end now. That story has already been told. We already learned that experience, that karma, and now it's time to move on to new lessons. This is a correction to feminism. And many of them who are feminists in their rather they self-proclaim, or rather they unconsciously subject themselves to that regime, that spirit. They now must reconcile with where they got misled in their addictions and attachments to Venus. And that is why we have number 9 vibration at the South Node standing between the self and desires, standing between the self and addictions, standing between self and the predicament that Venus has placed us into. And those attachments, worldly status, clout, money, consumerism, fake identities, the expensive budget of having fake hair, fake nails, fake lashes, fake body, fake teeth, fake nose, plastic surgery, everything fake, and it costs a lot of money to maintain it. The number one consumer in the entire world is the Black woman. She is the number one consumer in the entire planet. This has a direct effect on everybody. Understand? It is not misfortune. It is not a curse. It's not a punishment. It's none of that. This is a saving grace, intervention. Because now she has to heal her circumstances with the home front, with the community. And with the masculine figures of her community. As Jupiter in Cancer represents a husband or husband figure, an elderly father or mentor of a masculine energy. I hope we'll take these things into consideration so that we can have a full awareness on what's unfolding in our world and not being afraid to look at the truth wherever it may be.